So it has been 6 months and 4 days since I last smoked nicotine. Haven't had nicotine in the last 6 months and 4 days in any way, shape, or form. And this is a quitting nicotine timeline. So starting off with the moment that you end up abstaining from hitting nicotine, you may or may not know prior to that point, if you're premeditating quitting, that is, thinking about it multiple times before you actually end up making the decision, which is one way. Or another way, you're hitting it and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, and legitimately in that moment you stop. You either your vape runs out, you just get rid of it in general, whatever happens. But prior to that point, you need to have the motivation, the will to actually want to quit, and you'll know when you're ready. Like, if you're ever questioning, like, when should I quit nicotine? Like, I'm not ready, I don't want to. You'll know when's the right time. Like, I tried a couple of times to quit, and, I just figured I'm not ready yet. Until the absolute right time, I knew it was the right time. I knew I wasn't gonna relapse this time. It's just, it was an all sense of knowing that I had. It was a sense of all knowing that I had about the situation and how it would play out. And I wanted to see what things would change over the next X amount of time. What I noticed over the X amount of time, how I could compare and contrast both lifestyles of, living with a nicotine addiction versus being sober from nicotine. And that's a big thing having to do with this. And back to the timeline. So you go ahead and you're about to quit. And no, scratch that. Let's say you take your last hit and you quit. The moment you get a craving, whether it be 2 seconds after, a minute after, 30 minutes after, do not allow it to doubt your ability to stay away from it and to stay clean from nicotine for a long period of time. Take care of that craving by detaching from the craving, pretending like it's not there, and just thinking about something else that is in motion of helping you grow, not something else that's going to damage you and lead you to another addiction or some messed up path down the road, right? After that first craving, say you might get another craving after that, do the same thing to that craving. Then you get another craving, you do the same thing to that craving. And then you build up the resistance towards these cravings. The more you tell these cravings to basically, fuck off, right? And yeah, that's harsh, but you need to adapt harsh and a hard mentality, and to be able to tell yourself, no, I'm not going to cave in to what my body's telling me that I want, right? Your body's going to do all sorts of things to justify the use of nicotine, to justify the use of, hey, going to the store to buy another device and whatnot. But yeah, really in those first couple hours of that first day that you quit, it's about telling yourself no to the cravings and to not fold. Then, once you get through that first day, you may have some physical withdrawals just because, the nicotine is still in your system and your body is feeling the lack of the nicotine in the muscles and the fat, in the lungs, everywhere in the body. Nicotine goes not only to the brain, but it goes to everywhere in the body because it's fat soluble, which means it gets through the lipid structure in cells, which it can permeate through. And so it may take a while for that nicotine to absolutely clear through that body. In the meanwhile, you might experience a sore throat. You might experience a headache, migraines, coughing up mucus, getting rid of some of that stuff that is just built up in there. And then, yeah, you might end up getting headaches, but they really don't last long whatsoever, as long as you are, you know, making sure you stay hydrated. One cure to get rid of a headache, which is a really, you know, trusted way of mine, is to submerge yourself under really hot water. Submerge yourself under hot water, including your head, and you'll literally feel the headache kind of start to lift away. And then hot drinks are also good for that. But that's what I did when I was experiencing that. And then, as well as the sore throat, yes, just drinking hot tea and liquids, which I've talked about in other videos before, especially the ones where I was doing check-ins a couple months back, when a lot of this stuff was more relevant towards my journey on quitting nicotine. And so, yeah, getting through those like first 5, you know, I'd say the first week you're dealing with physical withdrawal still. And then it's about, in that amount of time, changing up your actions, changing up the things that you do, to where, hey, I used to be vaping, I used to be smoking nicotine during this time. Why was I doing it? Was I just bored at the time? Okay, if that's the case, then fill something up to do during that time that you would end up being bored, and then it just end up smoking nicotine. You know, and then if that's not the case, find some activities that you can do to where you can actually have a creative outlet, or an outlet for your mind, an outlet for your body, an outlet for your spirit, somewhere for you to take this extra energy you have now that you're not losing energy to, you know, your nicotine addiction. You're not soaked up in that, you know, pattern per se. Find something that you are going to start to work on that is going to further motivate you to continue to stay sober from nicotine. And you can hear and you can read that at about 2 months, it pretty much plateaus in the timeline that you can see of quitting nicotine. It plateaus from like 2 months to 4 months. Like, there's no difference. It's just mood kind of plateaus. But for me, which I can say, which I've been smoking for 5 to 6 years prior to quitting, and so far for 6 months and 4 days, is that it was a brief amount of time where I struggled with the quitting, right? Now, after 6 months, a lot of weight has been eased off of that pressure that I felt from quitting. But I want to say I started to feel that immediately after I quit. Kind of that freedom from the bondage of addiction. I felt that immediately after I quit. And for me, it was just about taking that feeling that I know as being sober from nicotine and kind of riding that out through the times, no matter what, you know, not caving in to any sort of cravings that I have. Anytime I saw someone with a vape or anything like that, I didn't allow that to enable me to say, let me go to a smoke shop and go grab a vape just to be comfortable, right? No, it actually helped me look for things that were good for me, that were actually uncomfortable, but that helped me grow. And so, yeah, that's a timeline. And where I'm at right now is at 6 months. This is where I started. Now I'm at the 6 months and 4 day check-in. And nicotine is not much but a slight memory in my reality, in my existence. And I did it for much longer than I quit. So this is a timeline for quitting nicotine, kind of what you'll expect. And that's going to be it for the 6 month and 4 day check-in.